Right now, I am standing in the rain outside the law firm of Sterling Vane and Associates in Midtown Manhattan. The air is a weather report of 45-degree sleet and the smell of wet asphalt and gray city exhaust. The humidity is 88%. I am holding a single heavy-duty 30-gallon black trash bag. Inside is a $15 manual typewriter, a 422-page ledger, and 3 changes of clothes that smell of fermented indigo fixer. My childhood friend, Julian, is standing under the firm's gold leaf awning. He is wearing a $3,500 charcoal wool overcoat with silk lining, an overcoat I tailored for him by hand last winter. He just signed a 120-page document that liquidated our company, Vane and Thorn Silk. He got a check for $500,000. I got a consultation release form and a bus token. Julian looked at me, but his eyes were already calibrated for a life that didn't include me. He adjusted his tie, a silk piece I wove using a 19th century jacquard technique. He said, "Elena, we grew up in the dirt together, but dirt is not a permanent residence. You have the talent for the loom, but you don't have the stomach for the corporate boardroom." The conglomerate wants a structured vision. They want a leader who looks like the future, not a girl who looks like she crawled out of a dye vat. You're a stable piece of furniture, Elena. You're the floor we all walked on to get here. But the renovation is starting, and the floor is being replaced. It's not an insult. It's just your nature as a laborer. If you're watching this video, subscribe and tell me where you're from. Are you the one weaving the dream, or the one selling the thread behind someone's back? The year was 1985. We were 7 years old in the garment district. We used to scavenge scraps of discarded silk from the dumpsters behind the factories. We called them indigo treasures. Julian had the golden boy charm even when his shoes had holes in the soles. Julian got the praise from our teachers for managing our little scrap projects. Julian got the hand-me-down bike from the neighbors because he knew how to smile. I had the stained blue hands in the notebook where I calculated the dye ratios. I had the basement room in the tenement where the pipes leaked 1.2 liters of rust water an hour. I spent 10 years becoming his silent partner. I didn't just weave. I spent 5,000 hours in a 400-square-foot basement restoring a 19th century loom I found in a scrapyard for $200. I spent my nights in a public library studying the chemistry of the ghost weave, a technique that makes silk change color under different light frequencies. Julian got the credit for finding the source. Julian got the $450 lunches at the 21 Club with the editors of fashion magazines. Julian got the $12,000 custom-made suits paid for by my 110-hour work weeks. I got a chronic backache from the $5 folding chair I sat on for a decade. 3 hours ago, Julian told me it was over. He sold the ghost weave patent to a global conglomerate for $1.2 million. Except he didn't sell the patent. He sold the registration of the patent. He didn't look at the fine print on page 115 of my ledger, the part where I listed the active component as a trade secret. He was too busy looking at the 5 zeros on his check. A black Bentley Continental rolled up to the curb. The window lowered. Marcus Vane looked out. Marcus is 26. He is the heir to the Vane textile dynasty, the people who own the soil we used to play in. He has the $45,000 Rolex and the boredom of a man who has never had to calculate the price of a gallon of milk. He has been pursuing me for 6 months. He thinks I am a rare artifact he can buy and keep in a glass case. Marcus looked at my trash bag and smiled. He said, "Elena, I told you Julian was a scavenger. Now you're homeless in the rain. Get in the car. I have a $5 million laboratory in New Jersey waiting for you. And a $120,000 Harry Winston ring in my pocket. You don't have to be a laborer anymore. You can be a Vane. Just give me the master formulas and you'll never have to smell indigo again. I'll rescue you from your own stability." I looked at Julian, the scavenger who sold his soul for a $500,000 check. I looked at Marcus, The predator who wanted to buy my soul for a $120,000 ring. I spoke with the weather report coldness of a woman who has already felt the ice in her marrow. I said, "No." Julian laughed. Marcus frowned. I adjusted the strap of my trash bag. I said, "Julian, the check you're holding is linked to a patent that requires a specific fixer. Fixer. 9 and fixer. 9 isn't in the files you stole. It's in my memory. And Marcus, the laboratory is beautiful, but I don't want a cage, even if it's made of gold. I'm not the floor anymore. I'm the architect. And architects don't need rescuing. They need space." I walked toward the subway station. The 90s are just beginning, and for the first time in my life, I don't belong to any man. The air in my new space is a weather report of 62.4 degrees and the scent of stagnant dust and vinegar. It is a 300-square-foot attic in Astoria, Queens. The rent is $850 a month, paid in cash to a man named Mr. Henderson who doesn't ask questions. The ceiling is slanted at a 42-degree angle, forcing me to hunch over my work. I am sitting at a desk made of 2 sawhorses and a reclaimed fire door. Price, $12 at a salvage yard. On the desk sits my $15 manual typewriter and a glass of lukewarm tap water. Outside, the N train screams past every 12 minutes, vibrating the floorboards at a frequency of 14 hertz. If you're still listening, subscribe, tell me. Have you ever been told you were the hands of a project, only to realize the brain couldn't function without you? Julian called me 4 times today. He didn't use a cell phone. He used the landline at the law firm where he's now a strategic consultant. He is making $250,000 a year for doing nothing. He said, "Elena, the conglomerate is running the first batch of the ghost weave in their New Jersey plant. The colors aren't shifting. The silk is coming out of flat, dull gray. It looks like a funeral shroud. The engineers say the molecular bond is failing because the pH of the fixer is wrong. They're threatening to sue me for fraudulent misrepresentation. Just tell me the ratio for fixer." 9. It's for the sake of our childhood, Elena. Don't be the person who holds a grudge over a chemical formula. The golden child contrast of the buyout. Julian got the $250,000 down payment. Julian got the office with the mahogany wainscoting and the leather chair that cost $8,000. Julian got the visionary title in the industry newsletter. I got the $12 fire door desk. I got the 42-degree ceiling. I got the $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich that I ate in the dark to save on the electricity bill. I looked at the beige ribbon of my typewriter. I spoke into the receiver with the weather report coldness of a forensic auditor. I said, "Julian, the childhood we shared ended when you signed that liquidation agreement in the rain. The ghost weave isn't a formula. It's a living process that depends on the alkalinity of the water. If the silk is gray, it's because the molecules don't recognize the hand that's feeding them. CEOs are supposed to handle the strategic vision. Handle it." The silence on the other end was 6.2 seconds long. Then came the microaggression. "You've always been so territorial, Elena. It's a very unattractive trait in a woman. You have the talent for the loom, but you lack the grace for the world. Without me to sell your work, you're just a girl in an attic smelling of acetic acid." I hung up. I didn't feel a sting. I felt a clinical satisfaction. He thinks I am territorial. He doesn't realize I am the owner of the territory. The ghost weave requires a specific temperature drop of 4 degrees during the final rinse. A detail I omitted from the 422-page ledger. In the world of textiles, 4 degrees is the difference between a masterpiece and a rag. Marcus Vane's black Bentley is idling at the curb downstairs again. I can hear the low hum of the engine through the attic floorboards. He sent a courier up 10 minutes ago. Not with a letter, with a box from Harry Winston. Inside is a $120,000 diamond ring and a note written on $5 a sheet vellum. A jewel for the jewel of the industry. My offer for the New Jersey... Don't be the floor, Elena. Be the crown. The diamond is a 4.2 carat D flawless. I didn't put it on. I didn't call him. I put the ring in a Ziploc bag and placed it on top of my $15 typewriter. To Marcus, I am a jewel. A static object to be polished and displayed. To Julian, I am a hand. A tool to be utilized and discarded. Neither of them understands the weaver. The weaver is the one who controls the tension of the thread, and right now the tension is exactly where I want it. December 15th, 1994. The Grand Ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. The air is a weather report of 68.2 degrees, and the scent of expensive cigars and white shoulders perfume. The humidity is kept at exactly 40% to protect the silk wall hangings and the gold leaf molding. I am standing near the service entrance, next to a stack of industrial-sized dish racks. I am wearing a $35 polyester dress I bought at a discount store on 14th Street. The fabric is a static-heavy blend that clings to my legs. My hands are hidden in my pockets. The skin is raw from the acetic acid I used this morning to test the fixer. 9 stability. Marcus Vane is at the center of the room. He is wearing a $4,500 tuxedo made of wool so fine it looks like a liquid shadow. He is holding a glass of 1985 Krug. Price, $350 per bottle. He spotted me and walked over. Ignoring the CEO of a major retail chain, he looked at my $35 dress with the eyes of a man who was already mentally replacing it with silk. "Elena," he said. His voice was a weather report of high-altitude condescension and expensive mints. "You look brave. Coming here in that fabric, it's like seeing a master violinist playing a plastic toy. My father wants to meet the girl who told Julian no. Come to the VIP table. I've already told the waiter to bring you the proper champagne. You don't belong in the shadows, Elena. You belong on my arm. Stability is for the help. Beauty is for the throne." That is a microaggression. He thinks my presence at his table is an upgrade. He thinks the champagne is the cure for my brave poverty. He doesn't realize that the $35 dress is a choice. It is the camouflage of the predator who is about to enter the cage. I looked at his father, Arthur Vane. Arthur is 62. He owns the 240 supply lines for raw mulberry silk in Asia. He is the man who controls the soil of the industry. Julian was standing next to Arthur. Julian was trying to explain why the ghost weave samples he sold for $1.2 million are currently rotting in a warehouse in New Jersey. Julian's face was the color of unripened lime. Arthur Vane looked at me. His eyes were a weather report of absolute zero. "So, you're the laborer who holds the key," Arthur said. "Julian says you're a technical genius with a grudge. I say you're a girl who doesn't understand the cost of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. The conglomerate is filing for fraudulent concealment against Julian. And since you were his partner, you're on the hook for the $1.2 million. Sign the formulas over to Vane Industries tonight, and the debt vanishes. Refuse, and you'll be weaving rags in a prison cell for the next 10 years. The golden child contrast of the gala. Marcus got the $120,000 ring to buy my silence. Arthur got the $1.2 million lawsuit to buy my fear. Julian got the $500,000 check to buy his own destruction. I got the $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich I ate in the taxi on the way here. I didn't blink. I didn't look at Marcus's proper champagne. I spoke with the weather report coldness of a woman who has already calculated the load-bearing capacity of the floor. I said, "Mr. Vane, the ghost weave isn't concealed. It's just resting. The batch Julian sold is gray because he used a sulfur-based fixer. Sulfur is for matches, not for high-end textiles. As for the lawsuit, you might want to check the 1992 corporate registry. Julian liquidated Vane & Thorne Silk 3 days before the sale. I wasn't a partner. I was an external consultant. The debt belongs to the Golden Boy. I am just a guest." The silence at the VIP table was 11.4 seconds long. I looked at Julian. He looked like a man who had just realized the bridge he sold was made of paper. I turned to Marcus. I pulled the Harry Winston box out of my pocket. I placed it on the table next to his $350 champagne. I said, "The diamond is beautiful, Marcus, but it's a 4.2 carat weight. And I only work with 42 mommy silk. You're looking for a jewel. I'm building an empire. We aren't in the same business." I walked out of the plaza. The wind was blowing at 15 miles per hour from the north. The 90s were getting colder and I was getting faster. The years 1995 to 1997 were a montage of cold faxes and the smell of fermented indigo fixer. I didn't stay in the Astoria attic. I moved to a 4,000 square foot warehouse in Long Island City. The rent was $4,200 a month. I paid it by restoring 18th century tapestries for European museums. I charged $150 an hour for my technical hands. I spent my nights building the Aura silk loom, a machine that uses 42 different treadles to create the ghost weave. 26 years old, I am the sole owner of Thorn Aura Silk. I am working 110-hour weeks. I am drinking 75-cent bottomless coffee in a 24-hour diner at 4 a.m. I am using a manual ledger to track the 240 suppliers Arthur Vane thought he owned. I pay them 15% more than the market rate. I pay them in 30 days, not in 90. I bought their loyalty with the truth. Julian got the involuntary bankruptcy filing in 1995. Julian got the $1.2 million debt to the conglomerate. Julian got the job as a junior floor manager at a discount clothing store in New Jersey. I got the Thorn 9 patent for color-shifting polymers. I got a chronic cough from the dye fumes. I got a $12 hoodie from a thrift store that I wore for 3 winters. If you're still listening, subscribe. Tell me, have you ever built a throne out of the bricks they threw at you? The Mulberry Blight of 1996 was the weather event I had predicted. I knew the monsoons in the Suzhou region of China would be 4.2% heavier than normal. I had the agricultural data I bought from a retired professor for $500. The silkworms died in the millions. The price of raw mulberry silk jumped from $12 a pound to $450 in 6 months. Julian and the Vane family had 0 futures. They were short on silk. I was long. I spent every cent of my tapestry restoration money on the 1996 silk futures. I owned the rights to 14,000 pounds of raw silk at the old price. By December 1996, the Thorn Global inventory was worth $6.3 million. I didn't sell it to the luxury houses. I didn't sell it to Marcus Vane. I wove it into a collection called The Sovereign. I saw Marcus in May 1997 at a textile innovation conference in London. He didn't recognize me at first. I wasn't the girl in the $35 polyester dress. I was wearing a 42 mommy Aura silk that I had woven myself on the jacquard loom. The color shifted from charcoal to deep violet as I walked. Marcus was wearing a $3,500 suit that looked dull in comparison. He said, "Elena, I heard you bought the futures." That was a lucky gamble. Vane Industries is struggling with the supply. Let's talk about a merger. $10 million for Aura Silk. And the ring is still in the box. I'll give you the visionary title this time. You don't have to live in a warehouse. That is the microaggression of the suitor. He thinks $10 million is the price of my autonomy. He thinks the visionary title is a gift he can bestow. He didn't look at my hands. They were no longer blue. They were clean. I said, "Marcus, the futures weren't a gamble. They were a weather report. And the weather report for Vane Industries is stagnant. I don't want a merger. I want your market share. And I'm going to take it at exactly 9:30 a.m. tomorrow." I walked away. The sound of my silk suit rustling was the only symphony I needed. I was no longer the floor. I was the storm. October 12th, 1997. The Thorn Global debut at the Paris Fashion Expo. The air is a weather report of 55 degrees and the smell of damp wool and industrial ozone. I am standing in a booth that is 100% white. White walls, white floor, white lights. At the center is a single piece of midnight silk. It is the ghost weave with fixer 9. It shifts from black to emerald to gold as the observers walk past. It looks like a living creature. The conglomerate that Julian sold his fake patent to was there. They had their version of the ghost weave on display. It was gray. It was brittle. It looked like a funeral shroud. The CEO of the conglomerate, a man named Henderson, walked to my booth. He was wearing a $15,000 watch. He looked at my silk and his pulse rate hit 115. "Thorn," he said. His voice was a weather report of a hurricane with no eye. "We bought this technology from Julian Vane. We paid $1.2 million for the ghost weave. Why is yours alive and ours is dead?" I spoke with the coldness of a forensic auditor. I said, "You didn't buy the ghost weave, Mr. Henderson. You bought a vision. Visions are for press releases. Physics is for factories. Julian sold you the name. I kept the molecules. Fixer 9 reacts to the specific alkalinity of the water in New Jersey. Julian didn't know that. He doesn't know how to wash a beaker, let alone manage a molecular bond." Julian was standing in the shadows of the conglomerate's booth. He was wearing a cheap, off-the-rack suit that was pilling at the sleeves. He looked at me and his mouth opened, but no sound came out. The golden child was finally realizing the weight of the air. I didn't stop there. I hit the broadcast button on my fax server. At exactly 9:31 a.m., 240 faxes began to print in the offices of every major fashion editor in Paris. The faxes contained the forensic audit of the 1992 liquidation. They contained the proof that Julian had stolen the data. And they contained the original 115-page blueprint with my name on the title block. The weather report for Julian Vane. The conglomerate sued him for $4.2 million by noon. The Vane family name was removed from the exhibitor list of the expo by 2 p.m. The soil had been extracted. Marcus walked into my booth at 4 p.m. He was pale. His father had just lost the Asian supply contracts to my new collective. He said, "Elena, you've destroyed us. I loved you. I offered you the world." I looked at him like I was reading the ingredients on a box of laundry detergent. I said, "No, Marcus, you offered me a crown. I already had the loom. And a person with a loom can weave their own world. You can keep the ring. I have the market." I walked out of the expo. The air in Paris was clean, and I was finally, truly silent. January 15th, 1998. The Thorn Global headquarters moved to a 10,000-square-foot facility in Manhattan. The air is a weather report of 72 degrees and the scent of rosemary and industrial oxygen. I am sitting in a meeting with Julian. He didn't come as a partner. He came as a debtor. It smells of old cigarettes and failure. He sat in my $12,000 chair and looked at his hands. "Elena," he whispered. His voice was a weather report of 3 a.m. desperation. "I'm facing 5 years for corporate fraud. The Venus won't help me. They said I was on optimized assets. Just tell them the patent was a joint effort. Give me a letter of support. We were best friends, remember? We used to find treasures in the trash." I didn't look at his face. I looked at the $15 typewriter I had placed in a glass case in the lobby. I said, "Julian, we didn't find treasures in the trash. I found treasures. You found a way to sell them while I was working. The debt you owe isn't to the conglomerate. It's to the 5,000 hours of my life you converted into your visionary lifestyle. The micro-violence of the past." 2012. Elena got the $15 mechanical pencil. Julian got the $4,500 trip to Paris. 2014. Elena worked the 16-hour shifts. Julian got the $12,000 suits. 2016. Elena built the loom. Julian got the $500,000 check. This is the golden child contrast in a forensic ledger. I didn't give him a support letter. I handed him a Ziploc bag. Inside was the $12 set of shears from 1992, the ones I used to tailor the suit he wore to sell me out. Here, I said. You're good at cutting things, Julian. Start with your own expectations. The weather in the courtroom is going to be absolute zero. He left the shears on the table. I put them in the incinerator. September 12th, 1998. I am 31 years old. I am standing on the terrace of my villa in Tuscany. The sun is hitting the stone at exactly 45 degrees. The Thorn Collective is now 4,000 people strong. We don't have a CEO. We have an architecture of integrity. We pay our weavers a living wage that is 42% higher than the industry average. Marcus Vane is in a rehabilitation facility in Utah. The air is a weather report of dry sage and therapeutic silence. He spent his $120,000 ring fund on lawyers to fight my supply chain takeover. He lost. He spends his days cleaning the dining hall. He uses a $5 mop. He tells the nurses he used to be a king. They don't believe him. If you've watched all 7 parts, understand the final lesson of the weaver. The world will always try to tell you that you are furniture. They will try to tell you that the aura is more important than the atom. Let them dance on your roof. Let them spill their wine on your because when the storm comes, and the storm always comes, the only thing that stays standing is the foundation. My weather report. Clear skies. Visibility, infinite. Pulse, 60 beats. I reach into my pocket. I find the 500. Our MB Starbucks gift card Julian gave me in 1996. The plastic is scratched. The balance is 0. I walk to the edge of the terrace. I let the wind take it. It is a white speck against the blue sky. Then it is gone. I am Elena Thorne. I am the daughter of the soil. I am the master of the thread. And I am finally, truly, silent. March 15th, 1999. I am back in New York City. But I'm not in the boardroom. I am in a windowless room in the basement of the New York Public Library. The air is a weather report of 64 degrees, and the smell of decomposing starch and high-acid paper. The humidity is kept at exactly 32% to preserve the records of the 1970s. I am wearing a $2,500 charcoal wool overcoat and $15 surgical gloves. I am looking at a microfilm reel labeled Vane Industrial 1974. If you're still listening, subscribe. Tell me, when you dig up the past, are you looking for a treasure, or are you looking for the burial site? 3 weeks ago, Julian sent me a letter from prison. He didn't use a phone. He used a 50-cent lined sheet from a spiral notebook. He said, "Elena, I found your father's old journals. They weren't in the safe deposit box. They were buried in the floorboards of the summer house. He didn't just love me more. He was protecting me from you. He knew what you were. He knew you were a machine that would eventually eat the family. I have a lawyer now. He says your Thorn 9 feet patent is a violation of international copyright. See you in the light." The lawyer he refers to is a man named Silas Thorne, a man who was my father's original partner in 1974. A man who was erased from the history books. They think they found the original sin of my foundation. They think they found the flaw in the loom. I looked at the microfilm. In 1974, my father wasn't a prophet of luxury. He was a site foreman for a concrete company in Brooklyn. I found the record of the Queens disaster. 3 workers died when a parking garage collapsed. The foreman was cleared of all charges because he provided a signed safety report that proved the steel was faulty. But the signature on that report wasn't the steel inspector's. It was a forgery. I recognized the V in the signature. It was the same V Julian used when he signed my liquidation papers in 1994. This is the golden child logic across 2 generations. My father built his family on a forged safety report. He taught Julian that the face of the project is the only thing that needs to be clean. And they wanted to sue me for violating a legacy of theft. I didn't burn the microfilm. I didn't call my lawyers. I made a high-resolution digital scan. I sent it to the families of the 3 workers who died in 1974. I included a $500,000 legacy reparation from the Thorn Global Community Fund. The weather report for Julian's new energy lawsuit. June 12, 1999. The weather report for Manhattan, 85 degrees. Humidity, 90%. The air smells of hot trash and asphalt. I am standing across the street from a pawn shop on 8th Avenue. I am watching Marcus Vane. He was released from the rehabilitation facility 2 weeks ago. He is wearing a suit that used to cost $4,500. It is wrinkled. It is stained with the sweat of a man who hasn't been in an air-conditioned room in 48 hours. He is holding a $185,000 Patek Philippe watch, the one he bought for himself in 1997. The pawnbroker is a man with the $15 Casio and a mind like a forensic ledger. He looks at the watch through a 10x magnifying loupe. The movement is 18K gold, the pawnbroker says. His voice is a weather report of flat indifference, but the serial number has been flagged in a corporate bankruptcy liquidation. This watch technically belongs to the alchemist of Ash Trust. I can't sell this. I can only give you $500 for the gold weight of the casing. $500. The exact price of the self-discovery fund Julian gave me for a single day in Paris. Marcus didn't argue. He took the $500 bills with trembling fingers. He walked to a grocery store on the corner. He bought a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich and a $2 bottle of water. He ate it in the dark of a Port Authority bus station. If you're still listening, subscribe. Tell me, does the golden child still taste like gold when the money is gone? I watched him through the security feed of the bus station. I was sitting in my 64th floor office at the Thorn building. The air was a perfect 72 degrees. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I was looking for the biological bottom. I wanted to know if a person built on an aura can survive when the light is turned off. Marcus finished his sandwich. He threw the wrapper into a galvanized steel trash can. He didn't cry. He pulled out a 0.5mm mechanical pencil from his bag. She started drawing on the back of the bus schedule. He wasn't drawing a vision of a new silk collection. He was drawing a floor plan for a 400-square-foot studio with a solid foundation. I realized then that Marcus had finally become a worker. And as a worker, he was no longer useful to the ghost of his father. I reached into my pocket and found my Motorola pager. I sent a message to my private investigator. The message was, "Watch the prison. Ignore the man." December 31st, 1999. The final day of the century. I am standing on the terrace of the Thorn Global headquarters. The wind is 5 miles per hour. The humidity is 40%. Visibility, infinite. I am holding a $2 instant coffee cup from a diner in Queens. It is a relic of the time I spent building the foundation. If you've watched all 10 parts of The Independent Weaver, understand the final lesson of The Alchemist. The world will always try to tell you that you are furniture. They will try to tell you that the aura is more important than the atom. Let them believe they are the drivers. Because when the floor finally moves, the only person left standing is the one who built the floor. Julian Vane is a footnote in a prison log. Marcus Vane is a draftsperson at a small architectural firm in Iowa. He earns $14.50 an hour. He wears a gray uniform. He doesn't remember the scent of fermented indigo. I reach into my pocket. I find a Ziploc bag with the $12 set of synthetic brushes from 1992. The bristles are worn. The wood is stained with yellow jasmine. I walk to the incinerator in the corner of the lab. I throw them into the flames. The sound of the wood cracking is the only symphony I need. My weather report. No signal required. Pulse. 60 beats per minute. I am Elena Thorne. I am no longer the ghost. I am the light. And I am finally, truly silent. January 12th, 2010. I am standing in a glass-walled conference room in the Burj Al Arab, Dubai. The air is a weather report of 68.4 degrees and the scent of $400 per ounce oud and pressurized nitrogen. The humidity is kept at exactly 35% to protect the digital servers humming in the sub-basement. I am wearing a $6,000 bespoke suit made of carbon fiber reinforced silk. It is the color of a moonless night. My pulse is a steady 60 beats per minute. If you're still watching, subscribe. Tell me, when you own the sky, 3 weeks ago, Julian St. Clair invited me to this Unity Summit. Julian is 45 now. He is the CEO of Aura Global. He is the man who bought the debt of the Vane family. He's the man who thinks he can monetize the ghost I created. He sat across from me at a table made of reclaimed mahogany from a sunken 19th century ship. Price, $250,000. He didn't look at the scars on my soul. He looked at the projected market share of Thorn Global's open source line. He said, "Elena, you've played a brilliant game of technical sabotage in the 90s, but the era of the alchemist is over. The world doesn't want integrity. They want hyper-reality. It's a digital frequency that bypasses the sense of touch and stimulates the limbic system directly. Your fabrics are stable furniture, Elena. They're heavy. They're slow. They require actual mulberry leaves. I'm here to buy your Thorn protocol for $2 billion. Not because I want to use it, but because I want to archive it. You are a brilliant relic, a biological ghost. But the world is moving beyond the human variable. If you're watching this video, subscribe. Tell me where you're from. Are you the one making the product? Or are you the one trying to bypass the reality of labor? The year was 2008. The global financial crisis was a weather report of total systemic While Julian was buying up toxic assets, I was buying the arid land. I spent $120 million on 14,000 acres of soil in northern Africa that everyone said was dead. I spent 5,000 hours studying the drought resistance of ancient vetiver roots and silkworm mutations. Julian got the $500 million bailout from the global central banks. Julian got the visionary of the new century cover on Wired. Julian had the ethics committee that he paid in stock options to stay silent. I had a 200-square-foot lab in a shipping container in the middle of a desert. I had a $15 mechanical keyboard that I used to write the soil regeneration algorithms. Julian spoke like he was reading the weather report for a Monday morning in the year 2050. He said, "Elena is a stable piece of legacy code. Neurosilk is the future. A ghost doesn't complain when it's finally laid to rest." Now it is 2010. Julian is about to launch Neurosilk at the Dubai Summit. He thinks he has bypassed the loom. He doesn't realize that for 730 days, I have been feeding his limbic algorithms a diet of true randomness. I didn't steal his code. I poisoned his reality. March 15th, 2012. The air in the Thorn Global headquarters is a weather report of 72 degrees, and the scent of ozone and drying concrete. We are moving. Not to a penthouse. To a 500,000 square foot subterranean facility in the Swiss Alps. The walls are 24 inches of reinforced basalt. Price, $1.2 billion. Subscribe. Tell me, have you ever built a fortress just... The golden child of 2012 is a man named Leo Sterling. He is a Silicon Valley prodigy who believes that texture can be reduced to a binary string. He is the chief aura officer for Julian St. Clair. Leo got the $12 million seed round from his venture capitalist father. Leo got the no-label vicuña wool hoodies that cost $4,200. Leo got the TED Talk where he claimed that nature is a technical debt that we are finally clearing. I got a chronic headache from the blue light of the monitors. I got a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich that I ate while watching the liminal decay of Leo's data. I saw Leo in May 2011 at a tech fabric summit in Basel. He didn't recognize me. I was wearing a gray lab coat and a medical mask. I was standing at the Thorn Global booth, which was a 10x10 space with a single glass vial of water and a piece of raw silk. Leo was showing the digital silk to the CEO of a major social media platform. The silk was a series of electrodes that promised the feel of a mother's embrace. Leo said, "Look at the stability. NeuroSilk has corrected the biological inconsistency of the human creator. It has removed the Elena Thorne bitterness. It has created pure, objective desire. Desire is for people who can't afford the math. That is a microaggression." He thought my bitterness was a bug in my design. He thought my 20 years of picking mulberry leaves was a biological inconsistency. He didn't look at the water in my glass vial. If he had, he would have seen that every 4.2 seconds, the liquid changed its molecular vibration to match his own heart rate, a biological echo that I had planted in the global water supply of the summit. I stayed silent. I looked at the high-frequency arrogance of his hoodies. I knew that the math he was so proud of was exactly 12 months away from a total systematic collapse. September 12th, 2014. The 15-year anniversary of the cliff. I am sitting in a virtual reality boardroom. I am wearing a headset that cost $15,000. The room is a digital recreation of the 64th floor Vane office. Claire and Leo Sterling are there. They are digital avatars. Their skins are smooth. Their eyes are perfect. They have no pores. If you're still watching, subscribe. Tell me, is a ghost still a ghost if it lives in a machine? Julian's avatar spoke. His voice was a weather report of digital compression and total certainty. Elena Thorne, Global is down to 12% market share in the traditional luxury sector. NeuroSilk is now 82% of the global market. The banks have called your loans. The 4,000 employees you protect are currently receiving offers from our AI staffing division. Just sign the legacy transfer. We'll let you keep the villa in Tuscany. We'll let you keep the 422-page notebook. Just stop pretending that the atom matters in a world of bits. Leo laughed. His avatar's laughter was a 440 hertz synthesized tone. Stability is like furniture, Elena. It's useful for a while, but eventually, it's just in the way of the renovation. You're the furniture. We're the light. I looked at the digital furniture in the room. The $450,000 mahogany table. I said, "Furniture is what you sit on when the lights go out." And the lights are about to go out, Julian? I reached into the inventory of my VR interface. I didn't pull out a contract. I pulled out a single file labeled beta-aldehyde 14. The evolution of the molecule that destroyed Sophie's silk gown in 1995. I said NeuroSilk relies on a specific microwave frequency to stimulate the limbic system. A frequency of 4.2 gigahertz. I've been the primary supplier of the frequency chips for Auto Global for 3 years. I didn't sell them under my name. I sold them through 14 different shell companies in Shenzhen. And every one of those chips has a hardware lock. A lock that reacts to the scent of a human being who has been lying for 10 years. The weather report for the VR boardroom. Packet loss. System failure. Total blackout. June 20th, 2016. The fallout of the digital silk scandal was a weather report of total systemic execution. Julian St. Clair's NeuroSilk didn't just crash. It caused a limbic feedback loop in 4.2 million users. They didn't feel a mother's embrace. They felt ashes. For 14 days, the elite of the world couldn't wear their own clothes without skin irritation. Their luxury fabrics felt like the crematorium scandal from 1995. The history they tried to erase had become their only tactile reality. Julian got the Crimes Against Humanity investigation. Julian got the $12 billion class action lawsuit from the victims. Julian got the permanent ban from every financial exchange in the world. Leo Sterling moved to a rural commune in Oregon. He spent his days digging holes for fence posts. He used a 12 R&B shovel. He told the other members he used to be a god of light. They laughed at him and told him to get back to the soil. The montage of the liquidation August. Aura Global was officially dissolved. The $1.2 billion server farm in Dubai was seized and turned into a public library. The liquid oxygen garden was drained and filled with real mulberry trees. September. Julian's $15,000 silk suits were sold at a police auction for $4.20 because they all caused chemical burns on the wearer. I got a quiet flight back to New York. I didn't buy a Ferrari. I bought the Vane building back. I didn't turn it into an office. I turned it into the Thorne Institute for Forensic Textiles. I hired the 4,000 employees Julian had tried to fire. I gave them $125,000 base salaries and 100% medical coverage for their limbic systems. I visited Arthur Vane in his care home one last time. It was October 12th, 2016. The 17th anniversary of the 90s betrayal. He didn't recognize me. He was sitting in his plastic chair staring at a blank wall. I handed him a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich. He took a bite. He smiled. He said, "This tastes like the 90s. I said, "No, Arthur. This tastes like the truth. And the truth is hard to swallow." September 12th, 2018. I am 42 years old. I am standing on the terrace of my villa in Tuscany. The sun is hitting the 500-year-old stone at exactly 30 degrees. The air is a weather report of rosemary salt and absolute silence. The Thorne Protocol is now a global standard for ethics in manufacturing. We don't sell aura. We sell legacy. Price, free for those who work the soil. If you've watched all 15 parts of The Independent Weaver. Understand the final lesson of The Alchemist. The world will always try to tell you that you are furniture, but the light is free, and the face is just a thin layer of paint over a structural void. Marcus Vane is a name that no one remembers. Sophie is a grandmother in Ohio who teaches her grandchildren how to spin wool. She doesn't use synthetic fixers. She uses the Thorne method. I find a Ziploc bag with the 500 RMB Starbucks gift card Julian gave me in 1996. The plastic is scratched. The magnetic strip is demag. I walk to the fireplace in the villa. I throw it into the flames. The sound of the plastic melting is the only aura I need. My weather report. Clear skies. No signal required. Pulse. 60 beats per minute. I am Elena Thorne. I am no longer the ghost. I am the one who owns the room. And I am finally, truly silent. October 2018, the Thorne Institute for Forensic Textiles was complete. We didn't just study fabric. We studied the biological debt left by the golden children of the 20th century. I spent 500 hours in the archive room. The air was a weather report of 64 degrees. And the smell of ancient parchment. I found the Blackwood Registry. It was a list of every family that had used Julian St. Clair's aura to hide their crimes. There were 42 families. Some owned steel mills. Some owned media empires. All of them had treated their workers as stable furniture. I didn't call the press. I didn't file a lawsuit. I initiated the systemic audit. I sent a single swatch of shadow silk to each family. The silk was dyed with a molecule that changed color based on the carbon monoxide levels in the room, a silent monitor of their toxicity. Within 6 months, the 42 families were under investigation, not by the police, by their own conscience, or rather, by the auditors I quietly funded. If you're still listening, subscribe. Tell me, if your clothes could tell the truth about how you treated people, would you still wear them? I watched the Blackwood Registry dissolve. One by one, the names were removed from the boards of museums. One by one, the visionaries were replaced by the engineers. I wasn't a vigilante. I was a restorer. I was bringing the original color back to the... January 2019. I saw a young girl in the village of Gros. She was 7 years old. She was scavenging scraps of silk from a trash can behind a high-end boutique. She called them treasures. She looked like me in 1985. She had the same blue stains on her hands. I didn't give her a check for $500,000. I didn't give her a $120,000 ring. I walked over and handed her a $12 set of shears, the same kind I used in 1992. I said, "Treasures aren't found, little one, they are made. And the only way to make them is to own the shears." She looked at me with eyes that were a weather report of pure curiosity. She didn't know who Elena Thorne was. She didn't know about the $2 billion empire. She just knew the weight of the metal in her hand. I spent the next year building a school in Grasse, the Thorne Academy of Analog Arts. No computers, no AI, just looms and dye vats. I hired Sophie to teach the introductory course on Mysore sandalwood. She didn't use her face. She used her hands. She was no longer silk. She was the loom. May 2020. The Vane building on Fifth Avenue was officially opened as the Global Museum of Hubris. It is a 4,500 square foot glass box. Inside there are no paintings. There are only objects. Exhibit A, the $450,000 mahogany desk stained with industrial bleach. Exhibit B, the $185,000 Patek Philippe with the flagged serial number. Exhibit C, the $35,000 silk gown Sophie wore to the 1995 gala, now yellow and smelling of sulfur. Exhibit D, the $15 manual typewriter I used to build an empire. The entrance fee is $4.50, the price of an egg and cheese sandwich. The proceeds go to the families of the workers who died in the 1974 Queens disaster. I saw a group of fashion students there last week. They weren't looking at the silk. They were looking at the typewriter. One of them asked, "How did she do it? How did she turn a basement into a skyline?" I was standing in the shadows, wearing my gray hoodie. I didn't answer. The weather report for the museum. August 2021. I visited the warehouse in Long Island City at 6 a.m. The air was a weather report of 55 degrees and the smell of industrial lemon cleaner. The 4,000 employees were already at their stations. They weren't furniture. They were the board. The Thorne Collective had transitioned to a worker-owned cooperative. Every weaver owned a share of the Thorne 9 patent. Every dyer owned a piece of the Tuscany soil. I walked to the spindle of the 19th century jacquard loom. The wood was smooth from 30 years of use. I touched the thread. It was strong. It was honest. Julian Vane passed away in a state-funded facility in France last month. His obituary in the Financial Times was 2 sentences long. It didn't mention the aura. It simply stated that he was a former consultant. Marcus Vane is still in Iowa. He's the senior draftsperson now. He makes $75,000 a year. He owns a 1998 black Volvo. Reliable, solid, unremarkable. I realized then that the color of revenge wasn't red. It wasn't even indigo. It was clear. It was the transparency of a life lived without the need for a mask. December 31st, 2022. I am 35 years old in my second life. Wait, the timeline is converged. I am 46. I am standing on the terrace of the villa. The sun is setting over the Tuscan hills. The wind is 1 mile per hour. Pulse, 60 beats per minute. The archive of original sins is closed. The Thorne Protocol is universal. The family of lies is a ghost. The empire of truth is a heartbeat. I pick up a pen, a simple 50-cent plastic pen. I find a blank piece of paper. I don't write a formula. I don't write a name. I just draw a single circle, the beginning and the end. I am Elena Thorne, the daughter of the soil, the heir to the silence, and the void is finally legacy.